You can see that we're working our way toward an understanding of this idea that the eye is the light of the body, right? What can that mean? Well, the inward light, right, which is the kind of corresponding thing in us to what God's light is in the world, right? This idea that, as I mentioned at the beginning, right, that light holds the world together, that the kind of baseline or the foundation of creation is light, right? Has its analog in us in the outward direction of our seeing. And our seeing is made to be pointed out at creation, at our brother, and to see is to enjoy, right? So to delight in something, which is actually not that easy to do, even though we think it's super basic. We always sniff off like, oh yes, just, it's so naive and simple to delight in nature. Well, it's like, okay, so if it's so easy, wise guy, why don't you do it, right? Like, why not go out? So here's the thing, and we're going to get in a second to, it may not be in this episode, but we are going to get to what happens when things suck, right? And this is kind of, it's like we're taking the easy part first. Because the hard part is, well, how does any of this work when you're down on your luck, when you're suffering, when everything is awful, right? And Traherne has lots of great things to say about that. But one thing that reading Traherne really made me think about is, well, okay, that is definitely a kind of next level challenge, right? And it's going to come down ultimately to Traherne's belief that Christ on the cross is the highest manifestation of God's love, right? But it's like, well, if you're definitely not going to achieve the highest level challenge if you can't achieve the first level challenge, right? If you can't get past your ABCs, or if you can't beat the first level of the video game, then you're not going to have the power-ups that you need to beat the boss, right? So why would we begin from the hardest and most exceptional version of this question? And why wouldn't we begin from the real question, which is, okay, so you walk outside, there's a sky, right? And grass. There's things that are actually good. And the thing about them is that they fade, and Traherne talks about a lot about this, they fade into the background because they're everywhere and they're always with us, right? They won't always be, but they are in our whole lives. The grass is always out there. And so we forget that they're completely contingent. They could not be. They could have been totally different. There could have been no grass, no sun, no light, right? What if, right? And so once you see that, and once you understand that what you're looking at is the object of somebody's delight, right? This is what he means by seeing the happiness of God. To see happiness is to achieve happiness, right? Once your sight is directed toward the action of God in the world as creator, you're suddenly oh my gosh, this entire spectrum of delights, right? And Lewis talks about this in the Screwtape Letters. There are all these pleasures that are just there to enjoy, right? Eating, washing, drinking, right? And these things, yeah, leave aside for a moment what happens when you're deprived of them. But imagine that you could have been deprived of them totally, right? They could not have been before you at all. And your desire for them, right, should be like the desire of God, right? And this is something that Traherne is also really big on, is that God, unlike the gods of the pagans who are sort of impassive and beyond all desire, God wants things. That's why he makes them, right? He wants you. That's why he makes them. He wants your brother. That's why he made him, right? And so the minute you look at something, anything, as a thing that doesn't have to exist except that God is delighted that it should exist, right? Suddenly your whole life can be joy, right? I mean, again, your whole life, with the exception of the really bad parts, which we were going to talk about, Traherne also transmutes those into joy, although it's a harder case. But that's the easy case, right?